class on stroke. Dr. Dheeraj will take class on stroke later. We exchange the class. Myasthenia gravis, it is all relatively common. Sometimes you can encounter in practice. This myasthenia gravis, first of all, myasthenia means weakness. Myasthenia means weakness. Gravis means serious weakness of the muscle. Serious weakness of the muscle, especially the skeletal muscle. This is an autoimmune disorder, antibody-mediated autoimmune disorder involving the neuromuscular junction. Central nervous system is intact, sensory intact. No involvement of the central nervous system, only involvement of the neuromuscular junction. Okay, nerve, axon, nerve ending, and synapses, presynaptic membrane, postsynaptic membrane, synaptic cleft, and there will be involvement in this case. In this myasthenia gravis, there is involvement of neuromuscular junction, antibody-mediated autoimmune disorder involving the neuromuscular junction, and this disease is characterized by weakness and fatigability of skeletal muscle. Weakness is there, at the same time fatigability. With repeated use, weakness progressively go on increasing, or muscle power go on decreasing. This weakness and fatigability, this is because of antibody-mediated autoimmune reaction. There is antibody against acetylcholine receptor present in the postsynaptic membrane or post-junctional membrane, postsynaptic membrane. There are receptors present on the postsynaptic membrane. These receptors are called acetylcholine receptors. In this disorder, there is antibody formation against this disorder, these receptors, that is called acetylcholine receptor antibody. These antibody causes autoimmune reaction. At the same time, there is activation of complement, inflammation, autoimmune inflammation, complement activation. The net result of this autoimmune reaction is decrease or markedly decrease in the acetylcholine receptor. There is destruction of the end plate of the neuromuscular junction. And antibody reacts with this receptor, acetylcholine receptor, and it leads to complement mediated autoimmune reaction. The net result is decrease in the number of acetylcholine receptor present in the postsynaptic membrane, and this leads to small end plate potential. End plate potential cannot be generated properly. Small end plate potential, that is not enough to trigger an action potential. And this small end plate potential fail to trigger a muscle action potential. Failure of neuromuscular transmission. This leads to failure of neuromuscular transmission. Okay. Once acetylcholine is released into the synaptic cleft, and it combines with the acetylcholine receptor, and there is generation of end plate potential. There is decrease in acetylcholine receptor, and there is no formation of end plate potential, and this end plate potential does not reach the threshold potential. This leads to failure of generation of action potential of the muscle, and muscle become weakness. There is failure of neuromuscular transmission, and this leads to weakness of muscle contraction. Okay, this is the mechanism. Autoimmune disorder, there is antibody against acetylcholine receptor, and these antigen antibody reaction along with complement activation contribute to the destruction of acetylcholine receptor. At the same time, this end plate become very, very simple. There are so many folds and these so many receptors. This autoimmune destruction, inflammatory reaction may destroy the end plate. End plate become very simple. There are a lot of folds. These folds are flattened, At the same time, these acetylcholine receptors are markedly diminished. This leads to decrease end plate potential formation or end plate potential formation, which fail to trigger an action potential, and failure of neuromuscular transmission, and muscle contraction is weak. Okay, this is the mechanism. There is another receptor. There is another receptor present in the postsynaptic membrane that is called muscle specific kinase. Muscle specific kinase that is necessary for the maintenance and regulation of acetylcholine receptor. In some cases of myasthenia gravis, this receptor is also destroyed. There is antibody against this muscle specific kinase, MUSK. There is another receptor, there is another antigen, whatever you say, present on the receptor present on this postsynaptic membrane. In some cases of myasthenia gravis, acetylcholine receptor may be normal, but in this group of patients, there may be antibody against this muscle specific kinase, MUSK. And antibody against this receptor is also responsible for myasthenia gravis. These muscle specific kinase, this receptor, or this is necessary for the maintenance and regulation of acetylcholine receptor. So disease of muscle specific kinase may also cause disease similar to myasthenia gravis. You remember, there are two antibodies involved in the myasthenia gravis. One is acetylcholine receptor antibody, another is antibody against muscle specific kinase. Okay, in most of the cases, there is antibody against acetylcholine receptor. In minority of the cases, if acetylcholine receptor is not present, if acetylcholine receptor are normal, in these patients, there may be, in these patients with myasthenia gravis, there may be abnormality of muscle specific kinase antibody receptor, and antigen against the antibody against this may also destroy the neuromuscular transmission or impair the neuromuscular transmission. That is called muscle specific kinase. You remember this, okay? And in most of the cases, there may be some kind of thymic abnormality. Thymus gland is abnormal in myasthenia gravis in some portion of patients. In 15% of the cases, there is associated thymoma. There may be associated thymoma. This myasthenia gravis and thymoma or thymic abnormality may be there. Some patient may have thymic hyperplasia. Some patient may have thymoma. About 15% of the patient may have thymoma. Patient with myasthenia gravis, in these patients, 15% of these patients may have thymoma, and other remaining patient, for about 65% of the patient may have thymic hyperplasia. At least 75% of the patient with myasthenia gravis may have some kind of thymic abnormality. In about 15% thymoma, about 65% thymic hyperplasia. So there may be some correlation between myasthenia gravis and these thymic abnormalities. So there may be correlation, which may cross-react. At the same time, this thymus may also contain muscle-like cells, that is called myoid cells, that also bear acetylcholine receptor. Thymus gland also contains muscle-like cells, that is called myoid cells. These cells also contain this acetylcholine receptor. Any triggers that may lead to formation of acetylcholine antibody may also cross-react with muscle-like cells present in the thymus. So there may be correlation. These autoimmune reaction may be started at the same time, both in the neuromuscular junction and in the thymus. Okay. So what is the trigger for this myasthenia gravis is not known. Maybe some infections, some drugs that may trigger. Sometimes some drugs like penicillamine can also induce antibody-mediated myasthenia gravis-like syndrome. Penicillamine used in rheumatic disorders. You might have studied, you might have been taught that penicillamine may have side effect. These drugs can cause myasthenia gravis-like syndrome. This is antibody mediated. It induces antibody formation, and this antibody may react with this acetylcholine receptor and may induce this myasthenia-like syndrome. Even after stopping of drug, patient continue to have this myasthenia-like syndrome. Okay, and other drugs, sometimes some drugs like aminoglycosides, quinolones like ciprofloxacin, ofloxacin, these drugs also impair neuromuscular transmission. Patient with myasthenia gravis, if you are if you use this drug in this patient, then clinical condition may further deteriorate. So patient with myasthenia gravis, drugs that may impair neuromuscular transmissions like aminoglycosides, gentamicin, amikacin, tobramycin, streptomycin, and quinolones like ciprofloxacin, ofloxacin should be avoided. Okay, otherwise clinical condition will deteriorate in patient with myasthenia gravis. And this you should know. Okay, and clinical feature is usually simple, just weakness, fatigable weakness. First of all, let's say prevalence is 1 in 7,500 population. Out of 1 out of 75%, 7,500 population or people may suffer this myasthenia gravis, and this is an autoimmune disorder. Female predominance is there. Women to men ratio is 3:2 usually, and most of the patient with myasthenia gravis are usually female. And in the early ages, in 20s and 30s, women predominate, and in 50s and 60s, male predominant. Overall, female-male ratio is 3:2, but in the 20s and 30s, female predominates, and in 50s and 60s, men predominate. Okay, so most of the patients with myasthenia gravis are in the age group of 15 to 50 years. 15 to 50 years. So usually it is seen in young individual most commonly. Okay, and cardinal features of myasthenia gravis is weakness and fatigability of muscle. Weakness, patient may have subjective and objective weakness. At the same time, fatigability with repeated use of muscle, or repeated movement of limbs or muscles may cause further weakness of the muscle. Easily fatigable, muscle or limbs are easily fatigable. So weakness and fatigable of muscle. This weakness is worsened by this weakness worsens by repeated activity, walking, some maneuver, movement, repeated maneuver or movement may cause further or deterioration of weakness. Okay, and this weakness is improved by rest. Usually patient is okay in the early morning. During the daytime or in the evening, weakness may be very obvious. With repeated use, walking, and everyday works may cause weakness, and fatigable weakness may be there. Easily fatigable. Muscles, limbs are easily fatigable. Okay. And in the early stage, there is exacerbation and remission, especially during the early age, there is exacerbation and remission. Cranial muscles are the first to be involved. Usually, extraocular muscles are first to be involved. In most of the cases, extraocular muscles are involved. Okay, there may be ptosis, diplopia. In Some patients, these myasthenia gravis may only be confined to the extraocular muscles for many years. And some patient may have generalized involvement of the skeletal muscle. There may be involvement of the shoulder girdle, shoulder muscle, limb muscles, upper limb, lower limb muscle may be involved. And sometimes there may be paralysis of the paralysis of the diaphragm, which may cause respiratory failure, and patient may land in myasthenic crisis because of respiratory depression. At the same time, patient may have involvement of bulbar muscle. Bulbar muscle means bulbar muscle of chewing, muscle of swallowing, muscle of speech are called bulbar muscles. They are controlled by lower cranial nerves. These muscles are called bulbar muscles. Paralysis of this muscle is called bulbar muscles. Sometimes lesion of the lower cranial nerves is also called bulbar palsy. Pseudobulbar palsy and bulbar palsy. You should have distinction between these two conditions. Okay, bulbar muscles are the muscles of speaking, muscle of speech, muscle of chewing, and muscle of mastication. Okay, muscle of swallowing पनि भयो, chewing र mastication एउटै भयो. Muscle of swallowing, muscle of chewing, and muscle of speech. These muscles are called bulbar muscle. These muscles may also be involved. In usually diplopia and ptosis, eye may be the first. Ptosis may be the first signs usually, and sometimes generalized weakness may be there. Usually generalized weakness is seen in 85% of the patient, affecting the limb muscles. Limb weakness often proximal and may be asymmetrical. Sometimes limb weakness may be proximal. Thigh muscle, for upper arm muscles, shoulder girdle muscles may be weak, and this may progress, and sometimes may be symmetrical or asymmetrical. There may be asymmetrical presentation as well. Sometimes respiratory muscle may also be involved. Sometimes this may lead to myasthenic crisis. Patient may land up with respiratory failure. I know inspiration is diaphragm is inspiratory muscles. Patient cannot inhale properly, and there will be ventilatory failure, and patient may have myasthenic crisis. Patient may have respiratory failure also. Okay, usually this is restrictive respiratory failure. Restrictive ventilatory defect is there because lung expansion is poor because of poor contraction or weakness of the respiratory muscles, that is diaphragm. And deep tendon reflexes are intact in this case. Deep tendon reflexes are not involved or not diminished. Tendon reflexes are preserved or maintained. Tendon reflexes are maintained. Sometimes it should be these myasthenia gravis need to be differentiated with other conditions like Eaton-Lambert myasthenic syndrome and so on. In such condition, this Eaton-Lambert syndrome, there is decreased tendon reflexes. Tendon reflexes may be diminished, but in case of myasthenia gravis, tendon reflexes are intact. And patients sometimes find difficulty in coming here. Movement above the shoulder may cause fatigue of the muscle. For example, patient may be combing here. He cannot finish combing for only one session. He may require multiple sessions to come here, especially female patient. Patients becomes easily fatigable. Movement above the shoulder may require multiple rest. For example, while patient is coming here, then patient cannot perform this coming here smoothly, and patient may require frequent rest. Okay, this is because of weakness. With repeated use, weakness go on increasing. You remember this. With repeated use, weakness go on increasing. Ptosis may be there. Ptosis is there, but there may be no impairment of pupil. Okay, you remember. There are so many diseases that may cause ptosis, but in myasthenia gravis, only ptosis is there. Diplopia may be there. Extraocular muscle may be paralyzed, may be involved, but there is no change of pupil. Light reaction, direct, indirect, light reaction, accommodation may be normal. So pupil is normal. There are other diseases that may mimic extraocular muscle palsy. For example, intracranial lesion, third nerve palsy, sixth nerve palsy of CNS origin may also cause ptosis and diplopia. So in this condition, you have to distinguish this myasthenia gravis with other intracranial lesion causing this weakness of the extraocular muscle. At the same time, intracranial lesion can also cause weakness of bulbar muscle that I already mentioned, muscle of speech, muscle of chewing, muscle of swallowing. Intracranial lesion or cranial nerve lesion can also mimic this myasthenia gravis. You have to distinguish. Okay, myasthenia gravis has to be differentiated from other intracranial lesions, which may have both ocular manifestation and bulbar manifestation. At the same time, patient may also have limb manifestation. Okay, this is about myasthenia gravis. Sensory is intact. In case of myasthenia gravis, sensory is intact. No sensory involvement. Sensory is 100% normal in case of myasthenia gravis. Investigation is important. Investigation. One test called, one of the common test is called this hydrophonium test, tensilon test. Tensilon or hydrophonium is an anticholinesterase drug that inhibit the hydrolysis of acetylcholine released into the synaptic cleft. It prolongs the action of acetylcholine. So it maintain action of acetylcholine for a longer period so that there may be improvement of muscle power for a short period of time. This test is called hydrophonium test or tensilon test. In this test, improvement in muscle power occurs within 30 seconds and persists after 2 to 3 minutes. Short-acting anticholinesterase drug after IV dose of 2 mg, there may be transient improvement of muscle power. Ptosis may be relieved or weakness of the limbs may be improved. This is called tensilon test. Within 30 seconds of IV, 2 mg of IV tensilon or hydrophonium, there may be subjective and objective improvement of muscle power. Ptosis may disappear for a short period of time within 30 seconds, usually persists 2 to 3 seconds. If response is poor with 2 mg of IV hydrophonium, you can further give 8 mg if no improvement is noted with 2 mg of hydrophonium. Okay, but you should be careful. Sometimes this drug may cause bradycardia. Sometimes cover with atropine may be necessary. Patient may require atropine at the same time because this drug can cause bradycardia. Okay, another is EMG, electromyography is diagnostic in myasthenia gravis. Sometimes it may also help. For example, repetitive nerve stimulation. Nerve stimulation, nerve controlling the muscle of limbs, repetitive nerve stimulation may show characteristic decremental response. Similar to repeated movement of the limb, muscle power go on decreasing. Similarly, repeated or repetitive stimulation of a nerve controlling that muscle causes characteristic decremental response. Action potential produced by repeated muscle stimulation or nerve stimulation will show progressive decrease in the amplitude of action potential. Okay, if you go on repetitive stimulating the nerve, action potential formed will be progressively decrease in amplitude. Will progressively decrease in amplitude. Okay, this rapid reduction in amplitude of evoked muscle action potential of more than 15% is diagnostic. Go on repetitive stimulation, repeated stimulation, and action potential, evoked action potential will decrease in amplitude subsequently. And this decrease in amplitude more than 15% is diagnostic of myasthenia gravis. Okay, and another test is acetylcholine receptor antibody.